Schizophrenia is where psychologists go to die. This quote speaks to the complexity of schizophrenia. Many hundreds of psychologists and psychiatrists have dedicated large portions of their lives to understanding this disorder, and ultimately, we still can't figure it out. In this video, I'm going to present to you one theory about schizophrenia that also relates to mythology and religion. But know throughout this video that this is far from the only valid theory that exists. With that being said, let's get into it. Theory begins on the famous psychological iceberg. On the top, we have consciousness, or the ego. Most people know what the conscious mind is. It sits in the driver's seat. It is how we perceive reality. It is the mode of thinking that we are most associated with or in most used to. It's essentially the lens through which we experience our waking lives. The unconscious mind is hidden from us an overwhelming majority of the time, but we're all familiar with being unconscious, specifically when we sleep. When we sleep, our dreams run wild, and the worlds that are produced are unlike anything we've ever seen before in our regular lives. Sometimes we may even have super profound, deep dreams that stick with us for a lifetime. This is a great example of when the unconscious comes into clearer focus. Carl Jung argued that somebody who is experiencing psychotic symptoms, or more specifically has schizophrenia, is suffering from one of two things: either a weakened ego or an abnormally powerful unconscious mind. And because of this, the individual experiences and is suspended between two different worlds. The world of the ego consciousness, the world that we're most familiar with, but also the world of our deep dreams. This might be difficult to grasp, but the conscious mind is a product of the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind created the conscious mind, and the conscious mind is kept afloat by the unconscious. Research time and time again suggests this: the unconscious mind that's really calling the shots. The chances are when we make a conscious decision to move to this city or take this job, it's actually the unconscious mind that made that decision for us, and the conscious mind that justifies it. And we know that the unconscious mind, by looking at dreams, is honestly a really confusing place full of esoteric figures, things that are very difficult to understand. The point is, this world exists in everybody. It doesn't just exist in people with schizophrenia or people suffering from psychotic disorders. We all have this world inside of us because we all are primarily motivated by our unconscious mind. So yes, the theory suggests that even those without schizophrenia still have those voices in their head, still have those hallucinations, but they don't experience them in the waking hours. Instead, they experience them during sleep. And what happens as soon as you wake up, all that stuff is essentially forgotten. The idea is that our ego, or our primary consciousness, is strong enough to suppress that, to hold that down. So what are these voices, these images that are supposedly running our lives? For most of us, they're hidden way, way deep inside, and they're hard to access. And chances are they developed many hundreds of thousands of years ago. There are ways to bridge this gap. Think psychedelic sleep deprivation, fasting, meditation, breathing techniques, and dreaming. All these things like breathing techniques, meditation, psychedelics, they all have this kind of spiritual tone to them. It's essentially because they enable us to tear the veil between the ego and our unconscious mind. And that results in a very meaningful experience because we're able to see what it is, what the contents of our unconscious mind are. We're able to see what it is that motivates us, what it is that's holding us back. But we still haven't answered the question: what are these figures? What is it that's occupying our mind? Now, this is where mythology finally jumps in to the conversation. Jung theorized that what we see during dreams or hallucinations are certain archetypal characters, such as the shadow, such as a creator, such as the jester. According to Carl Jung, these archetypes exist in every single person. They might represent themselves a little differently, but the characters are largely the same, and they exist in what's called the collective unconscious. So as you're probably getting the hint now, we're slowly creeping towards religion. Every single culture has this conception of a creator god, or a hero like Jesus, or Gilgamesh, or Achilles, or an anti-hero like Hades. These archetypes, from Carl Jung's view, are not literally out there running around doing things. They're inside of us. They are part of our psyche. They form the unconscious. They dictate our decisions. They manipulate our emotions, and they create our symptoms. They are the essence of who we are. Jung argued that if you can't properly integrate all these archetypes, you can run into issues like schizophrenia. How does one bring themselves back into a more ego-dominant perspective of the world? Jung argued that this could be done simply through talk therapy. And this is a very contested theory. Not a lot of people would hold on to this theory today. A very powerful quote from Carl Jung about schizophrenia says, "There's no symptom which can be described as psychologically groundless and meaningless. Even the most absurd things are nothing other than symbols for thoughts which are not only understandable in human terms, but dwell in every human breast. In insanity, we do not discover anything new and unknown. We are looking at the foundations of our being, the matrix of those vital problems on which we are all engaged. So is it possible that the same realm of our mind that produces hallucinations in schizophrenia or hallucinations when we dream is actually the very fabric, the very basis of religious belief? I think it's definitely possible. Now, there are absolutely more questions to be answered. How did these archetypes get into our psyche? What are they trying to say to us? How can we properly listen to them? And why have they manifested themselves so differently across so many different cultures? These are fantastic questions that we'll have to save for future videos. If you want to learn more about religion, psychology, and mythology, be sure to subscribe.